Hello and welcome to this MicroFocus support and training video on using ZENworks Service Desk for user self-provisioning of ZCM bundles. If you own ZCM, you own two technician licenses of Service Desk. We'll be tying these systems together, both ZCM and ZSD, to allow users to self-provision the ZCM bundles. You may ask why. Well, maybe you have an enterprise application out there that isn't on the preload when they get their devices. You can then put it in a customer portal and be able to have the user self-request, approve, and install that particular application. So you can dictate what those are. The ZCM bundle actions stay intact, so you still have control over the bundle and which bundles go in that portal. This does allow the user some ownership of their devices. And before I go too far, a quick shout out to a couple of ZENworks Service Desk systems engineers out in the field. Bob Reynolds, who assembled the documentation that's used in this example, and Todd Laycock, who helped me fine-tune this process for this presentation. So part of that user self-provisioning is it'll help reduce help desk calls for those application installs using ZSD Store. ZENworks Service Desk terminology, there's portals, there's system configuration and system connections, licenses, workflow, teams, and it is a ticketing system. This might give you a good introduction to that process as well. But it can run completely independent as a store. ZENworks Service Desk terminology, it's licensed two ways. Well, actually three. You get 2 free licenses, but then you can license more in incident management, or you can license it with ITIL, which is the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, which is a framework of best practice processes. It's expanded. Service Desk IM is incident management, but then you also have service requests, you have change control, you have problem management, and those things that are in the ITIL version of it. Everyone in the system must have an email address, and AD or LDAP groups dictate what type of user you are in ZSD. So the user types are customer, technician, administrator, supervisor, partner, manager, and finance. So you use all of those if you're using the big ITIL. You use the first 4 or so if you're just using IM. And you'll see those configurations on our demo. Now customers is how information comes into ZSD for the technicians, right? They place a service request or an incident. And then technicians are the users of the information that's in ZSD. So they process that information that's in ZSD. So it's a little bit different where we think our end users are typically referred to as users. In Service Desk, they're customers. And then what we refer to as technicians are the users in ZSD. And then you have administrators in ZSD as well. You do have a Getting Started, which helps you configure licenses, connect to ZENworks, import users from LDAP, create SLAs, import ZENworks items, and so forth. This is a quick start guide so that it takes you directly to the location you need to go to in order to configure those settings. We'll use most of these in the store setup, as you can see from the asterisk. You must be a supervisor to use the Getting Started menu, or it won't show up in the upper right-hand corner. There are 3 different types of portals. The Administrator portal, which is the main setup and config of core system settings, and that will set up the core product, as well as there's a supervisor, log in as super, or a technician user to manage tickets and configure ZENworks Service Desk and store features. And then there's a customer portal, which is the end user's ability to submit and review tickets and, in our case, use the store features. System configurations. In ZSD, it's being able to connect to the user source, whether it's LDAP or Active Directory, eDirectory, Open LDAP. Connect to ZENworks Zone for ZENworks integration. ZSD configurations, we're going to do some workflows, teams, store item configs. And then in ZCM, we need to connect and register to ZENworks Service Desk so it can talk back and forth and get those bundles and the rights. And a ZCC admin in ZCM has to be configured with bundle, user, and device rights. Active Directory side, or LDAP user source side, you need a read-only user and ZSD groups so that we can define which is a customer, which is a technician, which is the administrator, and so forth. Users are configured with email address and manager. LDAP attributes and mappings for users. AD users, you're going to use the attribute mapping object GUID. For open LDAP users, it's entry UUID, and eDirectory users, you need to use GUID. And we'll see that under the LDAP configuration. Also, ZCM connections via Getting Started menu. If the ZenWorks zone has a hyphen, check out the TID 7016939. Licenses, Micro Focus Customer Care Portal Entitlement. Let's say you own a ZenWorks product. You will then automatically receive 2 licensed tech user licenses. That would be under the entitled software. Under keys, you'll see the NSD7IM 2TechUser.txt. That's a certificate and a key that you'll enter into Service Desk. The other 2 keys are the Service Desk update channel for the appliance to update the actual appliance itself, the OS, for security patches and so forth. Teams, SLAs, and workflows. Teams are needed for the approval process to complete. So we have teams, and if there's any escalation, we'll be dealing with the default incident team and the default store team. SLAs and workflows are created to automatically process the request. So we're going to create a store SLA and some other configurations for workflows. ZenWorks import options. You'll be importing from ZenWorks. There's 4 types that can be imported: hardware, software, bundle, and mobile device. These are all objects in the ZCM database. ZSD will pull from that. So depending on which checkbox you use for hardware, software, bundle, or mobile device, you can use one or all of them. You select Analyze. ZSD will then look at those requested objects, put them in a list so that you can select which ones to import. There's the list there. Once Analyze is complete, you can see it brings in those particular bundles, and you can then import those items. ZenWorks Store Setup. Supervisor can go to the store setup to manage and publish ZCM imported items. All right, you're going to promote them into the store and then configure them accordingly. Then the customers can go to the ZSD customer portal and see the available items and select on them, which in turn will put them in their ZAP window, and they can install from there. There are some logs under the administrator setup. There's reports tab, and you can see who's logged in. You can also see the system activity and the export logs. There is an alerts warning bell that you'll notice, and this comes up after activity's been done. Once you do an import, once it's complete, it'll give you a status. It'll show the bell ringing, and you can select it and see what that import gives you as far as conclusion once it's done. LDAP names must match exactly, and we'll cover that. You might have some license restrictions or time sync, so make sure that you are aware of some of those issues. We'll go through the process now, and you'll see that we can complete it here. There's one of the alerts there where it was denied a technician role because of a license limitation. Connection issues. Again, careful reverting VMs. You have multiple systems here. You have a database, you have ZSD, so it might be an external database to ZSD. You have ZCM, you have Active Directory. So if you're reverting, be careful. Time sync between all system components has to be there. And that's between the LDAP user source, the ZCM primary server, and the database if it's external, as well as ZSD. And then unable to download the SSL certificate, you may have this issue. That's under the Service Desk registration. So you want to make sure you can actually register in ZCC to the Service Desk. Let's check out our demo configuration. So we're running ZenWorks Service Desk version 8.1.2. We have an LDAP with AD. We're doing LDAP with AD. The name is digitalair.com. So we're going to make sure that we have digitalair.com on all of our LDAP connections, because it's important that ZSD and ZCM have the same. So we have an administrator in ZSD, well, that's going to be a user object in an Active Directory. And in our case, we're going to use Roadrunner, and we're going to put Roadrunner in the ZSD Administrator user group. Okay? Same with the supervisor. It's a user object. We're going to put Roadrunner in a ZSD Supervisor group. Roadrunner is also a ZCC Administrator on ZCM with those bundle user and device rights, right? And then Technician is a user. We're going to use Clark Kent. We're going to put him in the ZSD Technician. The ZSD Supervisor and the ZSD Technician are the two licensed accounts. Those take up licenses. So that's why we only have two. The other ones, like customers, you can throw as many as you want in ZSD Customer. And then for a line manager, we're going to use Bruce Wayne as a manager for Roadrunner configured under the user object for Roadrunner. And I'll show you that. The other ones we're not going to do, ZSD Manager, Partner, and Finance, because they are obviously for the ITIL version. And then LDAP name, digitalair.com. We need a read-only user in Active Directory, and we have that, ZENworks Service. And it's going to also be the LDAP name for ZCM. Again, those two items, Supervisor and Technician, take up licenses. Configured in ZCC is the ZCC Administrator with bundle user and device rights minimum and labeled exactly the same. Now let's go to the lab and see how we have our setup. Let's go over to our Active Directory first. We can see that we have users, we have our ZENworks Service read-only user, we have our ZSD Administrators, which we have Roadrunner, we have our customers, which we have a lot of people in here, including Roadrunner and Clark Kent, because you can be a technician and an administrator and still be a customer. Our supervisor is Roadrunner, and our technician is Clark Kent. And you can see Clark Kent, everybody has an email address, and Clark Kent has a manager, Roadrunner, as well as Roadrunner has a manager, Bruce Wayne. Okay, so with that, AD is pretty much set up. We're going to tap into it as a resource. We're going to go over to Service Desk. When you first bring up the appliance, you have an account, SD admin and root for the administration console. Not for Service Desk console, but the administration console. So we're going to log in as SD admin and the password we set when we brought it up. And we can see here that we have our online updates are set. We've already put that particular registration key in. If we look at register, we can see it's active. And then we can go over to Service Desk. We'll click on Classic Service Desk. For the Service Desk console, not the administration console for Service Desk, but the Service Desk console, you have two IDs, admin, and super. Those two accounts are automatic. So admin gives you the rights to the administration portal only. So I'm in as system administrator, and I have these rights, and I can do some setup configurations in here. If I log out and log back in as super, we then get the getting started, and you can exit the getting started up here. But this is a quick way to go to those places that you need to configure. For instance, configure license. I already put the license in. You can see I have two licenses here. All right. If you need to install something different, you install it here, license key and certificate. And so right now we only have that one user. There's also other portals with super, the user portal and the customer portal. Again, the user portal is a technician portal, and then the customer portal is the customer portal. And you'll notice one other thing is if we go ahead and increase the size a little bit, you notice the help button in the upper right hand corner. If you're configuring particular settings and you want to know what those settings mean, select the help when you're on that page, and it'll take you directly to that page in the manual and give you that instructions and descriptions for that particular button or setting. So next we're going to go over to ZENworks Configuration Management, and we're going to configure a few things. You can see we have some online updates to do. We're not going to do them yet. We're going to go to ZENworks Control Center. We're going to log in as administrator, you can see we don't have any other administrators in here. So we're going to remember we need a administrator with bundle user and device rights. So we're going to go out and we're going to pick Roadrunner for our administrator in ZCC. We're going to also give him some rights. Super Administrator does not do the same thing as the specific rights. Service Desk is looking for these 3 specific rights. So be aware. And since we have context, let's bypass this just for a second. We're going to go to Device Bundles. We're going to go to Enterprise, and we're going to create a new folder here called ZSD Store. So that Roadrunner can manage any of these bundles that are in ZSD Store. We also have under Bundles test area, I finished a Notepad++, so I'm going to move this over to the ZSD Store folder. Follow me? All right. Let's go back over to Configuration, Administrators. We have Roadrunner in here. Let's give Roadrunner some rights. We're going to go Bundle Rights, and we're going to actually say you have bundle rights in the ZSD Store. So anything in there. Anything else you don't have rights to, right? Just like the typical rights that we've seen for so long. And you can adjust these as long as you have assigned bundles in here. That's good. Now we're going to put all the devices. Actually, we don't have to put all the devices. We'll put all workstations. Or if you want to go down to departments or something, you can do that. And then we're going to do the user rights. Which users will automatically process, and we're just going to give all of these, any users that are in there, because we have users in the different areas. Again, make sure assigned bundles is there at minimum. Okay, Roadrunner now has rights. You could have made a ZSD Store role with these rights and then add your users to the role, and they'll get the rights in the same manner. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Service Desk Management and register to that server. And we're going to import the certificate. There it is. Apply. OK. The LDAP users and groups along with ZCM are pretty much set up now. We just need those 2 things set in place for us to go. The rest of it is going to be under the Service Desk configuration. And we're going to go to Setup or Getting Started. We can import users from LDAP. Let's go New. We're going to go to digitalair.com. It's Active Directory. You also have the LDAP servers for eDirectory or Open LDAP. We're going to go to Digital Air, digitalair.com here. We're going to configure this for 192.168.1.60. That username that was a read-only and its password. And we can import groups too if we wish to. And adding groups at this point will allow us to deploy not just to the user, which we're going to do in this demonstration, but also to LDAP groups, which means it could be devices or users or those groups. But not necessary. Okay, as you expand your knowledge on Service Desk, you can do that. Notice that Active Directory integration has been enabled. I made a successful connection to digitalair.com because it gave me an advanced tab here. By going into Advanced tab, we can now set our groups that we're going to pull from Active Directory. Okay, and we're going to include customers. And then you have your attribute mapping. So again, we're Active Directory, so we're going to use the object GUID. Okay, that's mapping from Active Directory database to Service Desk Directory database. We're going to go ahead and do customer orgs, and company is correct, department is correct. We're going to do line managers as well, which is linked to manager. We'll hit save there. Done. We can go back in and we can do our test now. And we'll see if we get a connection and what users are brought in. This takes about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm going to pause for a second. You can see it responded with finding an administrator, supervisor, technicians, 7 customers, and so forth. So that's good. So let's go back and let's sync Active Directory. And that's a background process. Again, we'll see the bell as soon as it is done with that particular process. All right. All right, let's go on over. We have to do some privileges to get this to work right. So under privileges, we're going to go to the customer, and we're going to make the store the default tab. So when they go to the portal, the first thing that shows up is the store. We're also going to allow them to view the technician, and we have a default time zone, so that's good. And we're going to hit save. The next privilege we're going to give is on the system side, and we're going to put in the host address, and we're going to allow OpenID consumers. All right. We're going to also make sure enable ZENworks integration is on, and we'll throw on remote control. Store config enable is on, so we have store config enable, and store customer enabled also. All right, make sure those settings are available. Hit save, and at any time you can re-index. Go back to LDAP. It's not done yet. We're going to configure some users as soon as they come in. Let's see if any users have come in. No users have come in yet. Oh, it's starting to bring in some technicians, but the customers aren't there. So we're going to wait a little bit. I'm going to put it on pause and be back in a minute. So it's been a few minutes, and we're going to look at our users. We saw the customers come in. Our users came in. Notice we have Roadrunner, Supervisor, Administrator, and Customer. We have our Technician, and we have our Manager. When a user source comes in and takes over the role of supervisor, super no longer works. So our system supervisor, we're going to log out and log in as our new Roadrunner supervisor. And we're going to go ahead and look. You can see the bell here. Here's our ADS import. And we have things that are updated and added. So we're good to go. We can go ahead and dismiss these, so we'll see new alarms next time. All right, now what we need to do for the supervisors, which is Roadrunner, we need to go ahead and set a couple of settings here, because people are going to be requesting bundles, right? They're going to be putting in a request for a bundle. We need to set the request and the service level. Line manager came in, that's good, and he has an email. So that all looks good for there. We're going to go ahead and hit save. Next, we're going to go to Clark Kent, who is our technician. Do similar. We're going to do request, service level. Line manager is not there yet because the line manager is Roadrunner. We'll have to do another sync for the line manager come in, because Clark Kent came in before Roadrunner, and so it didn't know to make that change for Clark Kent as Roadrunner being the manager. And then we're going to also do supervisor is Roadrunner. All right. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to hit save here. We're going to go ahead and do another LDAP sync, which is under Setup, LDAP. Go to digitalair.com, and we're going to do a sync again. And we're going to wait a couple more minutes for the bell to show up, and then we'll see that the line manager came in for Clark Kent. So we can see our bells ringing here. We have a new alarm that the ADS import is done and what it's updated and so forth. We'll dismiss this. We'll go to our user and check out Clark Kent to see if his line manager came in. There's line manager, so that's good. Supervisor's in there, requests, and so forth. And the last one we need to do is Bruce Wayne. We also need to make sure that for requests that he's in the loop. So we're going to go ahead and configure him with that as well, and we're going to hit save. All right. Our users are pretty much set up. Now we're going to go and configure the Service Desk Store a little bit. We're going to go to the user service, and we need to make some service level agreements. So we're going to click new, and it's going to be Store SLA. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick supervisor, and who's our supervisor? Roadrunner. And hit, and notice the SLM came in. Next. Now it's just going to go across these tabs, but we don't need to make any changes now because we'll do the workflows in just a minute. We're setting everything up so that we can then link them all together. So then we're going to go to User Portal Service Workflows, which is right up here. And we're going to create a workflow called Line Manager Approval. So with this workflow, it'll automatically approve. And I will go ahead and put this in like so. And next. Now for the life cycle, we're going to find the SLA, store SLA we just created. So now we're starting to knit this together. And we're going to go ahead and select save and done. All right, we have a couple more workflows we need to do though. We're going to open our line manager approval lifecycle, and now we're going to build our workflow. These are the available states, and it'll start building and construct it here. The first thing we want to do is we want to make a rejected state, and we'll just borrow this canceled one and make it rejected, and then that will pretty much be good. We're going to have some line manager approval here and technician required states, but we haven't created those yet, so we're going to hit save. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to have a line manager approval state. So we don't have that in the list here, so we're going to do new, and we're going to call it line manager approval, and that's a state. And SLA is active. We're going to say no. We do want this to be an approval state. SLA active is no. And then previous state, right here, the previous state, we want it pending. So we're going to shove that over there. These are the selected states it can be in. It's going to be pending. The accepted state will be in progress. And the approval state will be line manager. And then we're going to also have a rejected state called rejected. We're going to save that. Notice it's starting to build. Okay. Next is a new technician state. Technician required. So let's start that one. Technician required. For that, we're going to make sure SLA is active. We have the active state yes, and then no, 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 because we're not doing any editing or KBAs. Next, we'll go ahead and look at previous state is in progress. So it links over to the previous state in progress. And then the next state would be either closed resolved, rejected, or in progress still. Okay, so this is as it's at this state, they have these options. Next, we're going to go to the in progress state, which we already have down here. In progress, we now have to knit this together. These are all the same, that's fine, but we need to add in the available states. You notice the line manager and the technician required is there. We need to add the closed, resolved, and technician required. So the option is either it's closed and resolved or the technician is required. We're going to hit save there, and it's slowly knitting everything together. Now the pending state, let's go to our pending state, and we can see we have line manager approval. We have yes and no for the rest. We have SLA state is active, and then no, which is good. So those knitted together as we did the other ones. So we can hit save, and we pretty much have this workflow. In progress, it can get it rejected. In progress, it could go to technician required, those types of things, all right? Or it could be closed and resolved. And then these are the states down here that you could see. Finally, we need to do some team stuff. We're gonna hit done. And that's under user, teams. We have a default incident team. So let's check on that one first. We're gonna edit it. And we want the team lead name to be Clark Kent. Notice it's not here yet because Clark Kent isn't an available technician. So we're going to swap these. Now Clark Kent is there. Next, we are going to go to the next team, default store team. We're going to edit this. As well, we're going to put Clark Kent in as our technician. And we're going to go ahead and put Bruce Wayne in as a manager. And these managers, team managers, are people in the managers group that have been assigned to the teams using this workflow. And on the service tab, we want to make sure that we have line manager approval over here and service request workflow because we changed those workflows. All right. You can leave this the same. We'll hit save. So we have this error here. We're going to go to the group and we'll edit and have all the technicians over here. And then we're going to go to the default group manager and do the manager over. Now your teams are configured and your groups are configured. Next, we'll go to one more configured privilege, which we needed to set up these teams in order to have this come through. So we're going to go to privileges, under setup privileges, to the requests. We're going to put in minimum solution relevancies 30, and we're going to change this to default store team, or store SLA, sorry. We'll hit save. The final thing is to set up the ZENworks store. It's easier if we go to the getting started. If we just go to import ZENworks items, general, administrator, which is the ZCC administrator, and the password. We hit save, at which time it'll automatically fetch everything we need. And look at the ZENworks import, it brought it in and it connected to the right port, the database, the user, and so forth. So we're pretty well good here now that we've made a good solid connection. The next step is to edit this and say, what do we want to pull out of the ZenWorks Service Desk database? Well, we want to pull out the bundle. So we're going to just test the bundle alone. Let's go ahead and hit test. And it's successfully connected to the external asset system, which is the ZenWorks database. We'll hit save. Now we can hit analyze. What it's going to do is it connected to it, it's going to go analyze all the bundles so that we can pick on what we want to import. Started analyzing the information from ZenWorks. We'll hit done. Let's see if we have results yet. We do. Import analysis summary. Let's see what it says. ZenWorks import analysis is complete. We can now close this. Let's go ahead and dismiss these so we can see when a new one comes up. It doesn't keep flashing at us. If we go back in here, notice we now have the bundle tab up here. Whatever we check down here will appear up here as a tab. The reason for it is now we can go into this bundle. And remember that ZSD store? There it is. If we click on ZSD Store, we can see our Notepad++ is right there, version 2. Okay? We'll leave all of these checked so you can see them come in. We're going to assign it to the default incident team and the request to the default store team. We do not want it system generated or it'll just give us numbers for these bundles. So we want to let it have the bundle name. We're going to hit apply, and it's now, by selecting import, it'll go and import those bundles in those directories or those folders in ZCM. And notice it's done. And we have 9 imported successfully. So we could dismiss this. We can now go to the store. Let's turn it on. Roadrunner's here, which is good. That's our administrator. If this is blank or doesn't have the right user supervisor in there, then you don't have a connection set correctly. Make sure you check your registration for Service Desk in ZCM and make sure time sync is available and so forth. We could test right here and we see that we're successfully connected. All right, we'll go ahead and hit save. Now we've turned the store on and sync ZenWorks bundles with metadata. We can, do that always if we wanted to. Now the final thing is to configure the store, and that's under our user portal. Notice we have a store setup. Notice all of these different bundles are in here. And we're going to select our Notepad++ and we're going to promote. Notice here's a promoted column. We're going to promote this ZenWorks bundle, which is a Windows bundle. It's going to be under the store SLA. We're going to promote it. And we're going to also create a categorization called software. Hit save. Done. Okay. We have a default store template. We need to make sure our templates are done. We'll hit save. Let's go to our store templates. We have our default store template. We're actually going to create a new one called No Approval Needed. And the default SLA is going to be the store SLA. Default workflow is the line manager. It is in progress when it starts out. Default team is a store team. Impact, the technician is going to be Clark Kent. Impact is moderate and moderate. And the assignment can be either of these, system assigned or Clark Kent. It's going to go to Clark Kent anyhow if it does have to be escalated to him. We're going to do the assignment status. is in progress. Success is going to be closed. Failed is technician required. Start seeing some of these workflows coming in now. And the description here is no approval needed for these store items. We're going to hit save and done. So we're in the store. We have our store items. We brought in the Notepad++, right? We have store capable. All of these are store capable. This one is promoted. If we go to store items, we could see Notepad++ as a store item. Here's our categories, which is software. All right. So next we're going to open up Notepad. Notice it brought in the icon. It has the name. We can now set this up and we're ready to go as far as this particular bundle. Let's go over to our device and log in. Eddie Brock, which is a customer. Notice in his Zap window, if we look at all, he has Kronos, and that's it. Let's go ahead and do a refresh. If we look in here, we can also see Kronos is a device assigned bundle. Next, we're going to go to the store. So let's open up IE. Remember I said the default tab is going to be the store, so it's going to go right into the store when we log in instead of requests or other things. Here's our store item, Notepad. The default is the store. If we go ahead and select this guy and just request it, since we have the approval, it'll automatically process. We could see our request is 100,000. If we go to our request, you can see our requests, 100,000. It's pending. If we refresh here, we see Notepad there, and we see it's assigned to the user. Ready for install. User could then just go to his Zap window and install it. And to view what's going on in ZCC, we can go home, we can go to our bundles, we can go to Enterprise, ZSD Store, and you'll notice that Notepad++ is now related to Eddie Brock. So you can see it's assigned it to the user. If you want to understand who has been picking from the portal and installing on their own, you can set up auditing to be able to do some of those alarms or use ZRS. That pretty much concludes this training video on using the service desk for user provisions of ZCM bundles. Hope this gives you an idea of how to set that up. There's some things in there that need to be arranged and massaged. I have been told that there is some integration into iFrame if you wanted to use your customer portal. That I don't have any documentation on yet. I just got that news recently. So hopefully we can expand on that in a future version of the training video. Thank you so much.